In this video, we are going to take a look at if you are actually learning and then going to teach you how to learn quickly and effectively, because I can promise you that most people, they don't absorb information. Most of it goes in one ear and out another, and they don't retain it, which means they can't apply it, which means they can't reap the rewards of having taken the action from the information that they learned. So I'm going to be going over how to tell if you actually have been learning things, how to learn things, and how to learn the best things for you so that you can get ahead in life. That's coming up next. Hi everyone, my name is Dave and this is HeartSpace, where we are producing videos almost every day to help you live life more in your way, to help you live just a more fulfilling, just heart-driven, happy life. And in this video, I want to go over something that is absolutely going to help you do that. And we're going to be going over essentially how to learn more quickly and effectively. Because one of the things is, like I've already mentioned, a lot of people don't know how to learn. And it's not because they're not capable of learning the right information or learning in a way that's going to help them. It's just that almost all of us have been taught to learn in a way that's not effective through the schooling system and through so many other systems that basically just tells us to memorize certain thing and regurgitate, memorize and regurgitate. And it's just not helpful information. And so I want to give you an idea of how you can go out and not only find the right information for you specifically, but also how to apply that information, how to continually find the right stuff that's actually going to serve you in life. Because isn't that really the point of gathering information or gathering wisdom, is so that it will serve you in some way in your life. You gather that information so that you can apply it in a way that's going to help you, help others, and so on. And so that's what we're going to be specifically focusing on in this video. How to learn quickly and efficiently towards stuff that's actually going to serve you, not stuff that's going to get you bogged down or, you know, is going to be so complex that it kind of gets you into that, what is it called, information overload. So mental masturbation is another one someone called it. Don't mind my sink over there. But anyway, we're going to go over how to learn quickly and effectively. So the first thing we need to understand is that most people aren't absorbing information. And there's a reason for this. It's not that people don't want to absorb information, but there's a certain state that we're usually in that's not conducive to absorbing information. And so we need to learn that and deliberately put ourselves into states that are going to help us absorb the information. You might be watching this video in a state that's not going to be the most efficient to actually absorb what I'm saying, and you might have to watch this video a few times, which would be actually a really good thing to do based on what we're going to go over to really make sure you're learning how to learn. It's actually a skill. But anyway, the first thing to know is most people just don't absorb information. It goes, like I said, in one ear, out the other. They hear it and then it just leaves. It doesn't stick, it doesn't absorb. And we can't use information that we're not absorbing. We can't apply, remember, be aware of information that's just going in one ear and out the other. And you might be hearing a lot of valuable stuff, and we're going to go over how to tell what's valuable and what's not, by the way. Again, the right information for you. But you might be hearing plenty that is valuable, but not remembering it, not aware of it most of the time, because again, whoosh, whoosh, just going in one and out the other, baby. So we gotta address that first. Now, I'm going to go over this, I believe, in another video and really hone in on this because it's an important topic on its own. But the reason is because of the brainwave state that you're in. You are always in a certain brainwave state. And we're going to go over four. I'll give you four right now, called beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And essentially what these brainwave states represent are different speeds at which your brainwave states move. So for example, beta is moving at a faster hertz or frequency than alpha. Alpha is a little faster than theta. Theta is a little faster than delta. And delta is like your brainwave states are almost as slow as they can possibly get without you being dead, perhaps. But they each serve a different function. And when you're in when you feel a certain way, you actually are in a different state. For example, when you're feeling very frantic, like you're overthinking, you maybe feeling a little paranoid, you are 100% in a beta brainwave state. When your amygdala is going crazy, that's when you're in beta. It's very, very fast frequencies, and it's not a great state to be in, especially if you want to learn, especially if you want to maybe relax or be meditative. It's not a great state to be in that often at all anyway, at least high beta. There's actually high, mid, and low beta. Mid and low beta is actually what you're in most of the day, unless you are deliberately putting yourself into alpha states or theta states, or if you can, delta states. I mean, you're at monk level if you're able to do that pretty deliberately, but still, I digress. So we will have videos where we go over this in the future, but if you want to look up brainwave states and what they do, take a look at the work of people like Dr. Joe Dispenza. He does a great job of explaining this and the importance of it, but this is so important when it comes to us absorbing information, because when you're in high beta, you're not going to absorb information. When you're in a mid-range beta, you might have to be a little bit better at it, but a low beta is going to be where you're actually paying attention a little more, and you're just teetering in beta towards alpha. And alpha is when you start hitting things like the flow state. And guess what, guys? If you're in the flow state, you're getting ready to absorb some information. You're going to absorb a lot better. If you're in the theta state, then you're basically accessing your subconscious mind. You've opened the doorway to it, and you're definitely going to absorb more information. But we ideally want to get into that low beta to alpha, and even possibly theta if we can. But that's more of a that's something different that you'll do maybe for in a more meditative state to help affirmations get in there and all this different stuff. So we won't get into that today. But just understand that there are different states that allow you to absorb information more effectively and more efficiently, and some that just don't allow for it. So it's worth exploring, taking a look at that. So here's another reason why most people aren't learning at all. Or if they are, they're learning useless stuff that just clutters their mind and doesn't allow them to focus on the stuff that works. It's called the shiny object syndrome. It's people thinking that the more info, the better. The more info I cram into my brain, the more books that I read, the more videos on self-development I watch, the smarter and more intelligent I'll be, the more I'll get done. But have you ever met someone like that? How much were they actually getting done? Now, I'm not saying some people can be like that and get things done. There are people who can, but in my experience, the ones who are doing that, the ones who are constantly looking for that next dopamine hit of information to be like, look at what I'm learning, they don't get much done. They don't actually learn things, apply those things, and then see results in their everyday life. It just doesn't happen. I've known so many people like that. My girlfriend literally has worked with people like that, and has seen it firsthand as well in other situations. And so that shiny object syndrome, guys, you need to get that out of your brain. You need to stop looking for that next hit of information, thinking that the more you learn, in the sense of the more different stuff you learn, the smarter it's making you, the more intelligent it's making you, or you're absorbing it all, or anything like that. Actually, what's going to happen is you're going to most likely come across conflicting information that you don't even know is in there, and it's not allowing you to function in a way that serves you. So you need to understand that the quality of the information you are receiving, and we'll get into this, is much better than the quantity of the information you're receiving. It is much better to double down on information you know works and is going to serve you versus trying to learn 10 times more information that you're unsure is even going to be applicable to anything that you're doing. More isn't always better. And the further along we get into this, the more you'll realize that. And guys, again, this is not something I'm pulling out of my butt. This is something that a lot of successful people talk about. And we'll get into that when we get into learnability down here. But it's super important you understand it's not about quantity. This whole thing of like, you have to read 52 books every single year, different books. The more you read, the more blah, blah, blah. I don't buy into that paradigm, guys. It's not necessarily true. I myself reread a few books over and over again, and I'm very particular about letting new information, new books in, and I'll go over what my process is to letting those new books in, okay? So here's something that we're going to get into in later videos, but it's very important to understand. This is a very real thing. You can look into the works of David Hawkins, who was an expert on so many different things, but he basically made consciousness scientific. You know how that argument that like science can't explain consciousness? Well, yeah, there is an element of truth to that, but he actually found a way to measure consciousness and how to actually move up the consciousness scale. And so when you are considering what information to absorb, consider the consciousness level of that information. And so what I mean by that is you can actually calibrate information, books, people at different levels of consciousness. And the higher up in consciousness, the more effective, the more it serves, the more like no underlying things are going on, because you might be absorbing information that's at a certain level, but it's actually very manipulative. And you're being manipulated, like someone who's trying to convince you of something in order to, for example, buy their product. Instead of someone who's communicating from a place of love and giving and truly not wanting, expecting anything from you, but just giving because it feels good to give, operating at a level of love. Which would you rather learn from? The person who just wants to give you the great information that's helped their life so much and isn't really expecting anything in return. It's nice if they get something, but they're not really, they're not going to like get upset at you or anything. They'll just be like, no, just do it as you will with this information. I hope it benefits you. Versus someone's like, you got to do this now. Sign up for my blah, blah, blah. We've got 2 seconds left until the blah, blah, blah. There's 5 spots left. Blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever it is. Like, you gotta hustle until you literally can't breathe, but then I'll be dead. Doesn't matter. Hustle. You know, like that kind of thing. And that's not to take anything away from hustle culture. There's definitely something you should do in that regard. Heart hustle, I call it, putting in the work. But the point is, if the consciousness level of something is, and I'll use the Hawking scale, let's say the consciousness level of something is 175, that is pride, versus something that's 500, which is love. Which information should you be learning from? I'll tell you right now, the one that's anabolic. Anything below the consciousness level of 200 is catabolic. For those of you who don't know what that means, catabolic means life-destroying. Anabolic means life-giving. So anything above 200 on a consciousness scale is something you should be learning over anything under 200. And so that's something to take into consideration. And here's the other thing, guys. You could read 50 books that are under that consciousness level, and you will get, not only will you get not much out of it, it will root you in those consciousness levels versus reading maybe the same book over and over again that's at a 500 calibration on the consciousness scale. Again, that might sound weird to you guys who have never been exposed to that kind of thing, but if you look at the work of David Hawkins, he pretty much proved this. He passed the scientific method in proving this with the amount of testing they did with this, and it worked every single time. I forget the actual terminology that's used, but it's pretty much proven that this exists and is a real thing. You can check out the book Power versus Force to take a look at that, but I always consider the consciousness level of the information and the person I'm learning from before I learn anything. And if I feel that they are below, and you can actually do something called muscle testing to find the actual level, but if I feel that the information or the person or the book is below a certain level, I'm not going to consider it, because I know that it's not going to be as valuable to me than something that's above it. And why would I waste my time on something that's below a certain level when I could spend it learning from something that is at a different consciousness level higher up the scale, okay? And also, guys, one thing to consider when learning information is usually simplicity is the way to go. Life doesn't need to be that complicated. Things don't need to be that complicated. And usually when they start getting super complex, there's something a little bit off about that. Now, not in every single case, but a lot of times simplicity, the application of simple principles is what's really going to serve you and help you, okay? So I'll leave that there where it is. And again, you're gonna have a lot of questions if you've just been exposed to some of these concepts. I definitely recommend looking them up on your own time. We will make videos on things like consciousness level, on things like brainwaves in the future. But if you're curious now, definitely go look up, for example, Power versus Force, Dr. Joe Dispenza with brainwaves, all that fun stuff. Next, guys, and here's another thing that actually has to do with consciousness level, is intuition. Your intuition is going to understand more than anything what the right info for you is going to be. We want to be learning from things that encourage flow over force. If you are forcing yourself to learn certain things that you're really not being drawn to, you're not going to get much out of it. It's one of the things that I don't like about the schooling system, for example. You know, it's essentially cramming information into kids' heads that they didn't really ask for, that most of it's not that beneficial to them, and they don't really want to learn. It doesn't encourage excitement over the learning process. It doesn't encourage them to, for example, go out and learn things themselves. It's just like, no, here's the information you need to learn. Get it in there. Remember, regurgitate. Here's a date. This happened then. This guy was good. This guy was bad. Take our word for it, whatever it is. You know, it's what they want you to learn, and it's always going to be forcing when you're doing it from that place. But you'll notice if you can tap into an intuitive place within you, that you will be flowing towards the right stuff. For example, when I'm in a bookstore It's happened to me recently. A lot of times I'll be able to tell intuitively what book I should buy and which I should not. And this works every single time I do it. Now, I don't actually buy that many books because I have a core group of books I will continually learn from. And we're going to get into that when we get into learnability in just a moment. And I'll tell you why I do that and why it's so important. But recently, this was actually months ago, I found a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And this was, I kid you not, like one of those books that jumped off the shelf at me. Like for some reason, I was just drawn immediately to that book, like walked right to it, picked it up, and knew that I should buy it intuitively. And that might sound strange, but it's definitely been confirmed by the fact that I'm now reading that book and I'm being blown away by this book time and time again. I am getting so much out of this one book. It has been more beneficial than 50 plus self-help books that I've read just in this one book. Now, you can go out and buy that book if you want. Again, only if it's right for you. It may not be the time for you to read that. It might not be the thing you're drawn to right now. So again, just because it was the right time for me to read this book doesn't mean it will be for you. If it resonates with you, then you should probably take a closer look at it. But by doing it in this way, I found a book that is literally like changing my life with some of the exercises I've been doing from it. I've already read it twice through, going through it very slowly a third time to absorb the information and to be able to apply it. And so when it comes to selecting things like that, the videos, the books, you really want to move from an intuitive place, not from like I'm supposed to learn this, so I'm going to go learn this. Or, oh, someone told me to learn this. Great. If someone tells you to watch something or learn something and it resonates with you, go watch it. But don't watch it because someone told you to. I don't care if it was a friend, a family member, a teacher. If you're in school, all right, do what you got to do. I get it. I had to do what I had to do back then. Did not like school in the way it was. I learned more after my schooling in a year or two than my whole time there. And of course, you do need to learn important things like how to actually, grasp the English language or whatever language you're in. So there are some fundamentals you need to learn. But anyway, I digress. Flow over force is essentially what I'm getting at there. Next, guys, is learnability. Some people call this learnability index. And this is when we really start getting into what's super, super important when it comes to learning quickly and efficiently and learning in a way that's actually going to serve you. All right, guys, my camera died there, so I have to pick up where I left off. I believe we just finished going over intuition, getting into the flow over fear. So we're on to learnability. And guys, this is like I think I was saying, is when it really starts to get to the make it or break it point. Because you're either going to give into the shiny object syndrome or you're going to buy into this idea, which I found works and many successful people swear by, and it's learnability, the learnability index. And see, what a lot of people do is, again, they go after the shiny object. They're more interested in reading a lot of books. Look how many books I've read. You can see how that's like more of an egoic thing, right? Or the more info I have, the better. The more I cram in there, the better. But it's just not the case. In fact, it's how deep you go with the right information that's really going to allow you to progress and evolve and come across other right information and to really understand the concepts. Because guess what? If you watch a video on concepts you've never understood about before and watch it and then think you just understand those concepts, you're kidding yourself. You can't just watch or read or be exposed to something once and know it and actually deeply know how to apply it, how to experience it, whatever it is that you're learning. And so learnability comes down to a couple things. First is repetition. You have to repeat the information over and over again. For example, if you listen to an audio, like let's say you listen to Earl Nightingale, the greatest secret in the world, amazing audio you can find where he goes over what the greatest secret is, and it's a very valuable lesson. You can't just listen to that once and expect to absorb it and expect to learn it to the point where you're actually going to use it. You'll listen to it and be like, great, I know that, and then leave and then completely forget about it. And then you won't be able to apply it and reap the rewards from applying it because you aren't repetitively enough listening to it, engaging in it in a good brainwave state. If you go to the gym and you do one session of curling the barbell or the dumbbell, do you think your arms are going to get any bigger if you just go once and go like, oh, I know how to do this now and never come back? No, they're not. But if you come back and you work out consistently, you eat well, you recover, you do all this stuff, they will grow. And it's the same with learnability. You're going to need to watch, read, Expose yourself to the information time and time again. Expose and go away. Rest. Allow everything to consolidate. Come back. You're going to have even greater awareness. Repetition. Go away. Come back. Repetition. You're going to need a deep understanding of whatever it is that you're learning. It's not enough to just be exposed to it once, even a few times. There are people who study the same concepts or the same book for decades. Bob Proctor is someone that comes to mind. He has studied the book Think and Grow Rich for, I think, I don't even know how long, 30, 40 years. He's read that book every single day, and he's incredibly successful. Why? Because that's a book that calibrates highly. It's got good quality over quantity, and he is a master of the concepts in that book, and not only having learned them, but applying the concepts and continually going deeper. He says that he still reads that book every single day, and he's still learning things, and that's from one book. That's why, guys, that you have to find the right information. For whatever reason, when he was in his 20s and he was given that book, it resonated with him, and he intuitively knew that if he kept exposing himself to this information and applied it, it would reap many different benefits, many results in his life. And you only need to look at him now. He's one of the most respected people in the self-development world. He helps millions of people worldwide. He's, a multi-millionaire, many businesses, has used the principles in that book to be successful time and time again. But why is it that he was able to do that, yet people who have read the same book haven't? I'll tell you why. Because most people who have read that book have not applied what's in it because they've read it once, maybe twice. Usually people don't even get to twice. They have not gained a deep understanding of the information. They certainly haven't applied it, and they haven't used repetition to their advantage. They weren't learnable. That's the simple case. They're the same people that go, okay, I've read Think and Grow Rich. What's the next thing? Oh, how to influence and win friends, or whatever it is, that book by Dale Carnegie. Then they're on to the next one, then the next one. And they're never actually spending enough time on this information to absorb it to the point where they're going to apply it and then go deeper into understanding it from a different level of awareness, which you will have the more you repeat that information, which is why right info repeated is so important. That's how you learn. That's how you learn quickly and effectively the right info that will actually impact your life. And so I have a little nice diagram for you here to give you an idea of how simple this is. Simplicity, guys. This is not a complicated process. This is just understanding that if you try and learn a million things, you learn nothing. And there's a I think in a Chinese proverb, the man who tries to learn 1 million things ends up learning nothing. Or you can look at the one, I forget who was this one. It might have been Confucius said, if you try and chase 2 rabbits, you end up catching none. Right? When you're just constantly trying to go after that next shiny object, cram info in there, and not really focus or deepen your understanding on the one that's going to be the right info for you, the one you flow to, and you're not just trying to force yourself to learn. If you do that, that's when the magic happens. That's when you actually start seeing results. That's when you actually start applying. And we'll get into application. So I'm going to leave you with this, guys. Here is essentially my little cycle here for learning effectively and the right info. First is the awareness. What does awareness mean? Becoming aware of what the right info is. So understanding what it is, making sure its consciousness level is something that's actually going to benefit you. Again, anything under 200, when you learn how to do that, is catabolic. Look up what that word means. It means life-destroying. Do you really want to be reading material that's not life-supporting? It's not going to support you. It's, if anything, just going to keep you in lower consciousness levels, because you're never going to be reading that information and applying it and be above the consciousness level. You've been drawn to it for a reason, because you're also in that consciousness level. So be aware of what that is. Be aware of the brainwave state you're in when you're learning, and be aware of what the right info is. And again, developing those intuitive capabilities, which we all have. And every single person has the ability to be more intuitive. They're all built into us. Become aware of what that is. Become aware of what the right information is. There is information that will serve you more than other information. We're in the information age, guys, and so the struggle in this day and age isn't about getting information, which is what the struggle used to be hundreds of years ago. Our struggle now is discerning between which information is helpful and serves us and is right to us and is going to actually move us ahead in life, versus the information that's going to hold us back, even under the disguise of moving us ahead. Because there's a lot of info that disguises itself as good info, but really is going to hold you back or keep you in place. And that's why the consciousness level is important, because you can't fake that. You can't fake the energy of something. If it's below 200, it'll show, even if it seems and appears like it isn't. You know, in Power versus Force, he goes over when people learn this, what they do is they actually start doing it to books, and they are always amazed at what pile goes below 200 and what pile goes above. Because a lot of books that are in the under 200, a lot of them thought were above. And they say a lot of people will keep those piles there for a while just as a reminder of how, like, you can be tricked into believing something's going to be a good thing when in reality it's going to be catabolic. So again, awareness, and then it's the learning. You need to be aware of what that right info is, and then you need to get into the learnability. You need to get into actually absorbing that information. And I put rep there because this requires repetition. You need to watch the video over and over and over again. You need to read the book over and over and over again to really absorb the information. When I get a good book, guys, that resonates with me, I read it over and over and over and over and over again. If I buy a book that's not resonating with me, or I haven't bought a book in a long time, but when I had a collection of books and I moved to Thailand, I gave a lot of them away or got rid of them because they weren't going to be books I would ever read again, that I'd ever find that helpful. And so I knew that I didn't need to bring them, and I was kind of forced not to bring them because, like, I could only bring so many on my travels. And that really helps you hone in on what books are going to be good for you and what are not, what info is going to be good for you. So learn the right info. Once you find it, repetition. You know, read one book 10 times over before you read one book that's not going to be that great for you or doesn't fall into the right info intuitively, right? You are better spent reading the same book over and over again and absorbing that info. Remember Bob Proctor, Think and Grow Rich, every single day for 30, 40 years. And again, look at what it's done for him. Beautiful life, serving millions of people. That's the power that this kind of process can have. And then, guys, probably the most important step is applying the information you learn. Because what's the point of learning? What's the point of learning? It's so that we can then apply what we've learned to serve us in our lives or to get some kind of result in our life, right? So apply repetition. Again, you need to be applying repeatedly what you're learning. And then you repeat. You're like, okay, awareness again. What's the right info now? Is it still the same one? Should I keep reading the same book? Boom, yeah. We keep going through the process. We keep learning more. We keep applying as we learn, as we experiment, as we grow, as our awareness expands. We keep applying what we're learning. And you just repeat this cycle with the right information, guys, and magical things will start to happen in your life. Because now you're exposed to the right stuff. You're learning in the right way, quickly and efficiently, and effectively, while a lot of other people, again, are chasing this shiny object, going nowhere. And I know you know someone like that. I know that you can point to someone like that you might know, especially if you're in the self-development world. You know, there's a lot of people, again, they're shiny object syndrome. The more books I read, the more things I cram in there, the better. Not necessarily. And so you do this over and over and over again, and you're going to come across, again, the right info. You're going to repeat it long enough for it to actually stick and to be able to apply it. And guys, that, in my eyes, is how to learn quickly and effectively. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And guys, also with this kind of stuff, you know, ease your way into it, so to speak, and don't get upset if you can't get it right away. You just show up every day and do your best. Because again, most of us have been conditioned through the schooling system to learn in a very specific way. And so it might take a bit of time to deprogram yourself from that method of learning to this method of learning, where you're really honing in on that information that you know in your heart is going to help you to grow and evolve, and sticking to that information. Again, that's very counter to how we've grown up to learn. So it might take a bit of time for you to recalibrate to that method of learning, so to speak. So anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of that. You know, I want to create these videos to serve you, to give you the tools and the ideas that are going to serve you in your life. And I hope that I can continue to present you with information, wisdom, experience, anything else that is going to do so. As always, I love you, and I will see you in the next video.